Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. As we saw on the front page of The Australian today, Australians are actually more concerned about their mental health and job security than they are COVID. Now, whilst this has ramifications for how we learn to live with the virus and open up, end lockdowns, remove border restrictions, we're also focused as a government ensuring that everyone feels safe and secure at work. This bill, Respect at Work, will implement quickly and clearly a series of legislative reforms that the government committed to in its roadmap for respect. These improvements to the anti-discrimination industrial relations framework will see changes around sexual harassment in the workplace. What was something that happened once far too frequently, was often ignored or swept under the carpet, is no longer acceptable. Now, I never thought I'd be mentioning Dolly Parton in this place, but thanks to lockdowns, my consumption of documentaries has significantly increased, so over the weekend I watched the one on Dolly Parton. And whilst it looked at her whole career, there was a large part of it devoted to perhaps her most well-known movie, 9 to 5. Now, I remember seeing that movie when I was pretty young, and whilst the movie was ultimately about women working together and taking back their power, the behaviour of the male boss was what we would consider today wildly inappropriate, to put it mildly. But when that movie was made, that sort of behaviour was seen as so commonplace that no one really raised an eyebrow about it. And in fact, the slurs were directed at the woman who was being chased around the desk and inappropriately propositioned. So thankfully, that sort of behaviour is no longer tolerated, certainly not at that level. But we do know that there is still behaviour that occurs that's not acceptable. Behaviour that makes people feel unsafe in their workplace, and especially where there are significant power imbalances, where people are insecure in their job. So the amendments to the Sex Discrimination Act will aim to ensure, so far as practicable, that there's equality of opportunity between men and women, to clarify that sex-based harassment is prohibited. It will also remove the current exemptions for state public servants. The Act applies to members of Parliament, ministerial staff, as well as judges. In fact, it will ensure that prohibitions against sexual harassment and sex-based harassment covers all forms of workers. Everyone is now legislatively protected, regardless of where they work. And those who perpetrate the harassment, under the clarification that victimisation is unlawful, this can now form the basis of a civil action. But whilst these clear and concise improvements in this area, there is another part of the bill I wanted to particularly draw attention to: the granting of paid compassionate leave if an employer or their partner experiences a miscarriage. Miscarriage is still in some ways seen as a taboo topic, something we don't talk about or really acknowledge in the way that we should. Any parent will tell you from the moment they found out they were expecting, they were parents. It was their baby. But we know that up to 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. That's around 300 women every single day experiencing this. We don't know about many of them because many people still don't tell anyone that they're expecting until they hit that 12-week mark. And when it does occur, people often fail to recognise the real grief that is being felt. They make comments like, "It's lucky it happened early," or "maybe there was something wrong with it." The parent's grief is diminished or dismissed in a way grief would never normally be treated. This morning, I spoke to the CEO of the Pink Elephants, Sam Payne, the only national miscarriage support service in Australia. And they are incredibly welcoming of this leave for loss plan, as they refer to it. She welcomed the opening up of the conversation, the recognition that this is a tragic event for many, many couples, that this leave includes partners, because whilst we should always remember that the physical loss is experienced by the mother, partners also feel the grief around the loss of that child. So for anyone that is requiring support, pinkelephants.org.au, they actually have resources to help you that remind you that you did nothing wrong and it is natural to grieve. The women involved in the organisation have all experienced miscarriage themselves. They know that whilst time heals, the pain never truly goes away. And the fact that so many women keep going, they try again and sometimes again and again to have that child, this resilience is incredible. So thank you to the Pink Elephants for the work that you do and the work that you have done in this space, for ensuring miscarriage is something we acknowledge and that we acknowledge it appropriately and support those experiencing this significant loss.